For those of you who haven't followed Michael Pillsbury's work, I just want to take you through the 9 key principles he lays out from the warring states era, which lie at the heart of his work and which give you a sense of how he thinks China operates, and as a fact it does. So the first is induce complacency to avoid alerting your opponent. For many years, Beijing did that. Manipulate your opponent's advisors. Be patient for decades to achieve victory. Steal your opponent's ideas and technology for strategic purposes. Military might is not critical for winning a long-term war. Recognize that the hegemon, in this case the United States, will take extreme steps, even reckless action, to retain its dominant position. Deceive others into doing your bidding, and this is something China is a master at. Wait for the maximum opportunity to strike. Be vigilant to avoid being encircled or deceived by others. And one of the mistakes in Chinese history that the warring states made is that the challenger oftentimes struck before its time had come, made the incumbent alert, and then helping the incumbent quash the challenger before the challenger could become the new superpower. Is modern day China repeating that mistake, or do you think they've learned from the mistakes of the last several centuries?
The correct answer is both. There is a debate in China that we can see indications of, that some people think Xi Jinping has gone too far, that he's a bit too open about China's goals. But I think overall, the Chinese, I know, are very sensitive to observe in the great powers of the world how strong is the China threat theory growing. They try to measure it. They know individuals. We know that their embassies keep track of who are China's friends, who believes in the China threat theory, who are the swing voters in between.
Are you a friend, enemy, or a frenemy?
Well, the Chinese say you used to be our friend when you delivered the Mark 46 torpedoes for our submarines in 1985, when you provided nuclear targeting data to China against the Soviet forces. President Reagan did the most to actually arm China, sell them weapon systems. So they want that Pillsbury to come back. They haven't given up hope. And there is a group in our country, the so-called G2 people. They believe the US and China have a destiny to work together against all the other powers of the world.
These are who you call panda huggers.
They just like the word G2. No G20, no G15, G2. That basically the 2 great economies of the world can have the world order be their work. China encourages that way of thinking. One time they proposed to Obama, they proposed again to Trump, something called the new model of great power relations. And at first, it sounded very good. The new model means the rising power doesn't get attacked or hurt by the hegemon. But the Obama team started asking, well, who is in the great power relationship? Is India included? They said, no, India is not part of the great powers. And as the Obama team learned more, they turned down the Chinese offer. They've made it again to the Biden team. So this is something to watch in terms of how the world perceives the rise of China. If it's still a friendly panda, then a coalition's not necessary. And the only Cold War will be over technology issues.
If you're sitting in India, I promise you, you're not seeing a friendly panda, you're seeing a lurking dragon.
You're on the front line with China. You know, we don't have a border with China.
Given all your expertise built over the decades with China, what's your best estimate, Mr. Pillsbury? When and will the People's Liberation Army attack Taiwan?
Well, it depends on Taiwan and America's way of talking about Taiwan. The deal that was made by Henry Kissinger in the beginning was we Americans and the rest of the world pretty much included, we will not take a position on who Taiwan belongs to. We acknowledge you Chinese think that Taiwan is yours, but we don't actually accept that. So if that changes, that's a cause of war for China to attack. Right now, the ambiguity about who owns Taiwan is what keeps Beijing from having to attack. But there are already voices around the world that say Taiwan is independent. So far, America is the only country that sells weapons to Taiwan. We don't have any troops there. We don't store ammunition. We don't have a formal treaty. The Chinese belief is if we change any of that, that's a cause of war. President Trump secretly put a few American Special Forces units, they're supposed to be secret, on Taiwan. That when the Biden team came in, this somehow leaked to the press, to the Wall Street Journal, as a matter of fact. And now there's discussion of increasing the number of American advisors on Taiwan, and possibly even having military exercises with the Taiwan forces.
I didn't really get a clear answer. Ceteris paribus, things being the way they are, in your best estimate, will the People's Liberation Army attack Taiwan, and if so, when?
If I knew, I wouldn't tell you.
Manoj, let me try and get your sense of this. Do you think Xi, in the manner in which he's speaking about his armed forces, the modernization, the world's fastest modernization that's ever been seen, is it inevitable, or are they just building a muscle at this moment which won't actually need to be exercised?
I think one of the strategies that you've described also in your book is the idea that you win without fighting. So, I mean, I'm sure push comes to shove, if there is an opportunity and if the stars align and if the United States' response is predictable in a certain way, perhaps. But I don't think this is something, I mean, I followed the discourse in the United States where you have dates from 2017, 2024, 2025. I don't think this is inevitable at any point of time, and I don't think it's likely in the short term at all. It would be incredibly foolhardy, particularly after the lessons that Xi Jinping is watching Russia learn in Ukraine. So I don't see that as an imminent threat, even from an Indian point of view, as to what's going to happen in Taiwan.